Mr. President, with the permission of the sponsor, may I just ask some clarificatory questions to allow us to come up with a really strong bill in support of the promotion of sports and athletes in this country?
Gladly, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. President, just a little bit of history. I am a product of the Palarong Pambansa. And nung time ko, nakalaro ako in high school and also in college. So first of all, does His Honor have resource persons from both PSC and DepEd, or who
We
are
have
the
from
resource?
PSC only.
Sige. So I hope they
Mr.
can
President.
also help explain if there are some overlapping functions sa DepEd, kasi it's very important na when we create new entities, we are very much aware of the existing entities and what benefit it is to us if we will have new entities, if they are complementary. So as I was saying, during my time, I was in the great company of the late Lydia De Vega, Diane Castillejo, sisters, Christine Jacob, I think. But I'm wondering if in the particular palaro that I joined, if they were there. But anyway, I was in college. So would His Honor know when the palaro stopped being open to collegial level students?
When was that?
Players, I mean.
Stop ang palaro. 80s na. According to the PSC, Mr. President, they stopped during the 80s.
Di naman 80s 80s naman ako nang umabot nga ako doon. Di naman ako 70s.
The time the CHED was created, o nga no, 80s. Ilan taon na ba ngayon si...
1982 yata ako nag-start ng palaro in college. Anyway,
Nung na-create po daw yung CHED, according to our PSC officials.
okay. So at some point, the palaro no longer was open to college level players, and was that the time the PNG was institutionalized, or I just want to understand, no?
Actually, Mr. President, I prepared a chart, no, comparing the Palarong Pambansa with the Philippine National Games. Ang Philippine National Games po, it was created through Executive Order number 163 in 1994. The local government units are the participants. The main organizer, PSC, an age 18 years old and above. At ito po mga sporting events na nandiyan po under PNG, they may offer more sports to be played since it caters to big majority of the National Sports Association. Before, club po ito. Ang kukunin ko lang yung data. By club po. By now, LGU na po ang
Yes.
namamahala ng
Okay.
ng each participating teams. In 2011, with clubs, 2012, actually from 2011 up to 2016, naging yearly po siya, no? And then naging 2 years na po siya by every 2 years, 16, 2018, at dapat po ng 2020, but nagkaroon tayo ng pandemya. So it was resumed last 2023. Ang plano po nito, pag na-institutionalize na po ito, ay every 2 years po ito, magiging parang mini Olympics na po siya. At meron din pong para games, no? So, yan po ang plano ng ating PSC for the Philippine National Games. But comparing it with the Palarong Pambansa, ang Palarong Pambansa naman, Republic Act 10588, nandiyan po sa screen. Ang participants po nito, primary and secondary schools. Ang main organizer ay ang ating Department of Education, ang DepEd. At ang edad naman nito ay 13 and below para sa primary, at sa secondary naman po itong 13 years old but not older than 18. Medyo mag-aabot lang yung edad nila sa 18, no. And then sa sports, primary 15 sports, secondary 21 sports. And may serve as a feeder program for PNG, itong Palarong Pambansa. Ang pinagkaiba lang po ng Philippine National Games, yung mga out-of-school youth natin can join the PNG. It can also cater to elite adult athletes as old as 70 years old. Basta non-physical games lang po, no, like chess, pwede silang sumali din dito. Katulad niya, no, 18 to 29, ito yung demographics by age ng number of participants recently. So 18 to 29, 4,471 participants. 30 to 34 years old, 139, 35 to 39, 41 participants, 40 to 49, 56, and 50 and above, 32. Like chess, pwedeng sumali yung 70-year-old po dito na ating atleta. Yan, no, si Rico Mascareñas from Cebu. 70 years old na po siya. So yung pinagkaiba nito, estudyante po itong mga naglalaro sa Palarong Pambansa. At ito naman pong PNG ay pwedeng mga out-of-school youth, at mapopromote natin ang ating grassroots sports program dito, and potential athletes natin, dyan natin madidiscover, lalong-lalo na po sa mga malalayong lugar. Kasi magkakaroon po sila ng, before the finals, magkakaroon sila ng qualifying, just like Olympics, di ba? Before we qualify for the Olympics, meron pong mga qualifying. Ganon rin po itong Philippine National Games natin, magkakaroon po ng qualifier. For example, 2025, yung ating gagawing PNG, sa 2024 pa lang magkakaroon na po ng qualifier para doon sa magiging finalists or main participants na po sa 2025 na PNG.
Okay, I note His Honor's explanation. Basically, the biggest difference between the two sports events would be the organizer and the age of the participants. Because in terms of the objective, which is to grow sports, to provide a venue for these athletes to participate and to excel, I feel it's about the same, Mr. President. Does His Honor agree? I mean, they're both promoting sports.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. And so what I'm concerned with now is the continuity of these programs, because there's going to be a halt when it comes to Palarong Pambansa. That's why I said, nung time namin, tuloy-tuloy yun into college, no? So there's, ito dito, titigil siya, sabi not older than 18. Pero I'm pretty sure marami ding 18, 19-year-old na senior high. So sayang yun if the school, the private school, well, normally kasi, my understanding, and kindly correct me if I'm wrong, there is a selection process, di ba? So normally, kunyari basketball. So private school A versus public school B, they'll have a competition, and then lahat ng private school, public school in the LGU will compete. Tapos noon, the LGU will come up with a selection of the best. Di ba? Tama? Am I correct?
Yes,
Ganun ang
correct.
nangyayari, di ba? So naghahalo-halo na yung students from different schools. I'm talking about the palaro, no? Naghahalo-halo. Do the PSC representatives with you, Mr. President, can they confirm that? Are they aware?
Naghahalo ba ang mga estudyante? Merong selection process. Anyway, Mr. President,
So like some sports are team sports, some sports are individual sports. So yung selection process sa palaro, is it the same selection process as the PNG?
Yes,
So
the
in
same.
other words, if you are overage, you simply move to the PNG games.
Yes,
Tama po
parang
yun.
na-elevate na po siya to another stage itong ating PNG, Mr. President.
But I think what we need to understand, Mr. President, is where is the strength of our sports programs? Are they in the schools or are they in the LGUs? Because then that would matter in their ability to train and to prepare for the competitions.
LGU na. Ang LGU na po ang magko-cover dito, Mr. President. Since ang CHED, no, wala silang sariling sports competition program. Unlike the Palarong Pambansa na meron, no, until 18
Pero
years
Mr.
old.
President, that's not my question. My question is, where does the strength of our sports program lie? Do they lie under do they lie in the schools, or do they lie within the programs of the LGUs? That's my question, Your Honor, because if this will be the feeder program of the national team, then we need to know who is supporting these programs. Are they the LGUs or are they the schools?
Both, Mr. President. Schools and LGU.
May we ask the actually may I ask the PSC resource persons to give us a listing of the different sports and to tell us
Ilan lang?
where the talents lie? Are they in their school systems or are they in the programs of the NSAs in the LGUs? And if I may ask for a minute suspension.
Session suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resumed.
With His Honor's permission, I'd like to ask the presiding officers, he's an expert, being the president of an NSA of a very young sport. And my question to the sponsor was, where do we find our talents? Where are our sport, our talented young sports, our young athletes found? In the school system or in the LGU system? Because the bill on the floor is the Philippine National Games, which will be run by the PSC, but it is the LGUs that will provide the athletes. So if His Honor would be willing to share with us at least his experience as the NSA head of ARNIS, which may not be the same as volleyball and basketball, because I know for a fact that a lot of volleyball university scholars come from their school system.
Yes.
So would His Honor care to
Yes.
share his views with us?
Yes, with the permission of the body, if they allow me to just discuss a few seconds, my thoughts on the issue. In the Palarong Pambansa, that's schools-based.
Schools, yes.
Schools-based. Then you have the UAP, and then for the UAP and NCAA.
School-based,
School-based, yeah.
college level.
However, sa Palarong Pambansa, there are certain games that they don't play that are even Olympic games. For example, martial arts, they're very careful. They only allowed ARNIS in the recent few years, no? Only a few years ago. Maybe 10 years ago, wala pa kaming ARNIS because of the fear of the parents na ma-disgrasya mga anak nila. That's why there's no boxing also. I think they also stopped boxing in Palarong Pambansa. And that is why in ARNIS, we're only allowed padded stick competition. We have two kinds of competition, the padded stick and the live stick. The live stick is where you have a live rattan stick for 1 minute. You're hitting each other with a full armor, and there's a judge that will judge the most number of hits, like boxing. They banned that already in Palarong Pambansa. They only allow anyo, which is the form, and the padded stick. But in our international competitions, we need live stick. So that's why we rely on PNG, Philippine National Games, and Batang Pinoy, because that's a PSC, Philippine Sports Commission run tournament, where they allow these sports to flourish, including boxing. That's why in Philippine National Games, may boxing po dyan. So if you're looking for grassroots developmental tournaments, the PNG, the Philippine National Games, is a good way of being able to train children on certain sports. Yung school-based kasi, ma'am, even in the UAP, my dear colleague, and the NCAA, they still do not allow Arnis. For whatever reason, na ano daw, medyo full contact kasi. So, hindi pa nila inaalaw. So, we cannot get our pool of fighters from the school-based system pagka ganun. So, maganda nga itong Philippine National Games because it is PSC, and PSC will choose most of the NOCs, the National Olympic Committee teams. Under the PSC, I think 80 yata kami. We're about 80. Nandyan yung chess ni Senator Pimentel, nandyan yung...
Sir President, 78.
Sorry, 78.
78, yes.
Nandyan pa yung kickboxing ni Senator Tolentino, yung aking Arnis, nandun yan. Kompleto yan. So when there's PNG, usually lahat yan pwedeng isali under the Philippine National Games. And it's LGU representation because sometimes, Your Honors, mahirapan po yung mga teams pumunta sa Philippine National Games kung wala silang LGU support. So, they really go, even Palarong Pambansa, the LGU support them. The LGU support them. The only difference with the Palarong Pambansa, it is dictated about, or rather, the rules are dictated by the DepEd. So they're very careful what these sports events are going to be played there, especially so that it doesn't harm the children. But they eventually, each, let's say from Bukidnon, Palarong Pambansa, nandito sa Marikina or sa Bulacan, our kids still are being sponsored pa rin by the LGU Bukidnon. Itong Palarong Philippine National Games, yung mga LGUs nang sumasali. Hindi na sa DepEd, LGU nang sumasali nito. And it's been quite successful, except this last one, pinagsamahan po ng PSC yung Batang Pinoy and yung Philippine National Games in the same week. Kaya nagkagulo-gulo this last tournament. Overflow of participants and hindi nakatapos ng maayos. So, that's why I think the rationale of Senator Go to pass and institutionalize the Philippine National Games is that we can already fix the dates every 2 years ba or every year?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years para makapaghanda po yung LGU, makapagdala po sila ng mga participants, na sports participants. It's quite I'd say, novel idea, and it's been actually very successful in the last few years. Yung nga lang po, depending on yung PSC chairman, kung hindi niya type, hindi siya magpapalaro ng PNG. There are certain years that have happened na walang Philippine National Games kasi hindi priority ng administration ng PSC at that time. So, I would just say that it is good for me as an NSA because my players now can be chosen and the national team players can be chosen from these particular games. The Philippine National Games, aside from the national games that we are throwing or we are sponsoring every year as well. And yung fighters po namin, pwede din sila pong sumama dyan. Sa Philippine National Games, we have Team A and Team B. Yung Team A and Team B ng aming national team, pinapalaro din namin sa Philippine National Games. So, may venue sila to get better. As far as I'm concerned, as an athlete, and alam po ni Senator Pia Cayetano ito, the more events, the better the outcome for our athletes. The more events that you have, the more tournaments that you have, the better the events of our athlete.
Yeah.
I fought in, my last point is, I fought in the World Wushu Championships in 1992 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The second World Wushu Championships. Kickboxing yung sinalihan ko, it's called Sanshao at the time. And natalo ako sa laban ko. I fought a Russian. He became the champion. Muhammad Gustinov. I'll never forget his name. I was, ang dehado sa Pilipino, yung weight class mo, 5'8 ka. 5'6", 5'7", 5'8". Yung same weight class mo na Europeans, puro 6-footer lahat. So obviously the reach, the strength, the body mass, ay nako, talagang malalaki. And the advantage when I interviewed them and I said, why are you guys so good in Europe? It's because we have the national championships in our country, then we have the European championships, and then we join the world championships. So seasoned sila.
Yeah.
At that time, they were just here in the Philippines. Wala tayong ganyang championship. Pumipili lang sa best clubs. Sino pinakamagaling na fighter mo sa club na yan? Kuha. Sino best fighter? Kuha. So kulang tayo sa, at that time, in 1992, kulang tayo sa competitive training and competition. So for me, the more the competitions, the better for the athletes. Your Honor.
Agree.
So,
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
President,
Thank
for
you.
indulging us. I knew that you would be able to enrich our
Thank you,
legislative records with your personal experiences.
Thank you.
That's the reason for the question. Thank you also to the sponsor for allowing me to. But yes,
Yeah, may I, Mr. President, just to also share a personal experience, Mr. President. I played for the Palarong Pambansa in 1992. We were given a Hall of Fame award in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, in Dumaguete City. And being part of the Palarong Pambansa, and I was listening attentively to the questions raised by the distinguished lady from Taguig City. And perhaps, Mr. President, if the question is where do you draw the line or where do you actually look for
The talents.
talents,
Yeah, that
whether
was
it's
the
in
question.
school or in the local government use. The answer, perhaps, Mr. President, is it depends on what particular sports are you talking
yes.
about. For example, Mr. President, if you don't have a baseball ground, a football field in your own hometown, for instance, then there's no way, Mr. President, that you'll be able to train potential young
players.
athletes, Mr. President. And number two, Mr. President, just to put on record, I don't want to say this personally, but I was also a victim, Mr. President, of politicking when I played for my alma mater, the University of Santo Tomas. In fact, Mr. President, records will bail me out. I played in the 1994 UAAP Championship, UST versus LaSalle. I played as a starting guard in that particular year, the championship game. The next year, Mr. President, I was asked to pretend that I am injured, so I won't be able to play, to give way for the son of a city mayor. I would just like to put that on record because to caution also our colleagues in ensuring that there will be no politicking, Mr. President, because if this will continue to go on, and I am sure it's still ongoing, Mr. President, I am sure, hindi na mapipili yung magagaling, hindi na mapipili yung mga deserving kasi kung kamag-anak ni Mayor lang o kung kakilala lang, magbibigay ng incentive, hindi na pagalingan. Eh yung meaning ng sports na Tagalog ay palakasan, ibang meaning na po, palakasan na talaga. So yun lang po ang aking caution, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues.
Mr.
And thank you,
President,
Mr. President.
Opposite na po dito sa Senado. Kahit injured ka rito, but you are required to play. Kaya tayo nanalo as champion sa UNTV Cup.
We have to say also, Mr. President, that the chairperson made a lot of three-point baskets, Mr. President. That's why we won the championship. Thank you, Mr. President.
yes, congratulations pala. I saw the trophy that you won, yung sa championship trophy. Ano yata, Hall of Famer na rin yata kayo, di ba? Ang Senate basketball team?
Hindi pa.
Hindi pa ba? Ah, okay.
Nandun ka, nag-cheer ka eh. Thank you, Mr.
I think
President.
last.
Yes,
I
yes.
just took a picture with our staff majority leader today. And it was a big trophy that they showed me. Ano kaya yun? Si Sir Golding, si DG Gold, DepSec Golding. Oh.
Ay, hindi yun.
Ibang
hindi yun
game,
Hall-
ibang
hindi
tournament
Hall of
yun.
Fame yun. Kanya, ano yun, oldest player siya.
Mr. President, with the discussion, I I will add to that and somehow make my conclusion. Definitely, I understand the position, the experience of His Honor the Senate President, that under the leadership of the Philippine Sports Commission, just by the nature of its structure, you will have the participation of more sports, no? Because the NSAs obviously work closely with PSC. Again, it's a leadership issue pa rin because, as His Honor had pointed out, there were years that there were no PNG games.
Correct.
So this representation fully supports the statement made by the Senate President that the more games there are, the better our athletes will be. There's no argument there. We really support that. What we are concerned about are the need to be very clear in the role, the specific roles of PNG and PSC and how they will work together. There's a provision here about the need to work together, but that is usually not enough. We need to be more specific, Mr. President, to avoid both overlapping and conflicting understandings of their respective roles. So to get more clarity, Mr. President, my next question is, there is a statement here in the bill that says that something to the effect that, the PNG shall serve as a country's premier national sports competition and venue for the discovery of potential national elite athletes. So again, when I think of different NSAs, and again, the Senate President has an NSA that he shepherds, the NSAs take full responsibility and have a calendar of activities for the development of their sport in their own national competition. And from what I know, it's the NSA's competition that serve as the venue for the discovery of these national and elite athletes. Sila yung nagde-determine. So for example, I am a triathlete. I used to do a lot of triathlons. And so magkakaroon ng national triathlon event, and there was just one a week ago, and doon nila dinidetermine yung ranking. So I just want to be sure that there's no conflict here, because if I read the law, sinasabi ngayon dito na this is the premier national sports competition, but the NSAs have their own premier sports competition. So ayoko magka-conflict doon dahil minsan I know it is quite clear that it's still the NSAs who will determine who their national athlete is, but are you giving them the freedom to also determine the final roster of their national teams and not as dictated by the outcome of the PNG? Just want to be clear.
Itong PNG po, Mr. President, it's a government organized competition, while our NSAs have their own competition naman po, no? And yung sinabi nyo kanina, to determine the rankings. Diba? More competitions rin po. Gaya ng sinabi ng ating Senate President kanina, more competitions, the better for our athletes to train more at maging mahasa sila sa kanilang pagiging atleta.
Mr. President, to be clear, my question is, when I read the bill, it states that the PNG shall serve as the country's premier and national sports competition. So His Honor basically said that he supports the statement of the Senate President that more competitions are good. This representation also supports it. But the question is, will the PNG serve as the premier national sports competition to determine, well, it says for the discovery of potential national and elite athletes, and take precedence, or will be more, the outcomes here are more important than the own competitions hosted and organized by the NSAs? Because from what I know, it's the reverse. So we need to amend, in other words, what I'm saying is we might need to amend this if, in fact, PSC recognizes that each NSA can have the freedom to determine their national team, because based on the existing sports laws that we have, that is the POC and the NSA that makes those decisions, not as the results of the PNG.
Yes, if I-
Correct, Mr. President. I think
Right.
Ito pong ating NSA rin po ang finally mamimili, no? Kung sino po ang kanilang at mga athletes na pipiliin, magko-compete sa Olympics for qualifying. At I think co-equal naman po itong government-initiated competition like PNG kumpara doon sa mga competition initiated by the NSAs, Mr. President.
So siguro i-clarify natin yun, ano? Because when you look at the responsibilities of the different agencies and institutions, for the particular PNG games, it says it's the local government that will choose, and then the NSA's role in the games is to set the qualifications of the participants. But again, that statement that I read, which is on page 2, line 4, may be misinterpreted. So if His Honor is agreeing with me, then I will happily make an amendment at the proper time to clarify that it is still the NSA. And may the record show that the Senate President was nodding his head when I was explaining this.
Yes, you're absolutely correct,
Thank you.
Madam.
We can clarify this during the
O
period
kasi
of
we all have our
amendments.
own selection. So nagkakaroon kami ng national championships for selection for
Yeah.
national team players, which we submit to the PSC as the national players for arnis, for chess, for basketball, etc. Sa mga basketballista ng Pilipinas, SBP also is the one that chooses the lineup for the national team. So, kami naman, we look at the Philippine National Games as another venue for our national athletes to participate, train, and practice.
Train more. Oh, yes.
And pag natatalo sila dyan, actually, to be honest, pag natatalo sila dyan, yung nagtalo sa aming national player, we automatically sometimes seed him already. Seed him or her. So kinukuha na namin as part of the training pool. Kasi pag tinalo niya dun sa Philippine National Games, magaling na bata yun. But yes, the gentle lady from Taguig is correct. The NSA is the one that submits to the POC together with the PSC, the National Athletes Pool.
Yeah, because the problems that may arise from this language is baka may mag-insist na LGU na ang bata ko yung nanalo dyan. Bakit sa ranking ng NSA mo? Number 5 pa lang siya. Nanalo siya ng PNG. Sabi dito sa batas, it's the country's premier national sports competition. So that's just the reason
We
why
can clarify this
we need to clarify, yes.
during the period of interpellation,
Yes,
Mr. President.
I think we agree in principle, so let's just avoid the conflict that may arise from that. And because the reason for this also is we want every NSA to be very transparent in the selection process, just like Senator Joel experienced. We want to avoid those situations na may mga gray areas. So if we will say that one competition is the premier and the others are not, then the weight there would be an assumption that the weight given to the outcome there is heavier than others, and we need to be very clear about these things, Mr. President. Thank you. Just a minor observation, Mr. President. Still on page 2, we refer to the PNG Games. It says it shall be composed of a competition on sports for regular athletes and a competition on sports designed for para-athletes. I think we shouldn't call them regular athletes. We just call them athletes and para-athletes. It somehow gives a connotation that the other athletes are not regular athletes when you already have identified them as para-athletes.
We can.
Yeah.
We can delete that, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you. And also just so that we can clean up the bill, para-athletes or athletes with disabilities. Athletes with disabilities are the para-athletes, so there's no
Correct,
reason to
Mr.
use two
President.
different terms.
Correct, Mr. President.
Yes,
We can
thank you.
delete that.
And then, I just want to, yeah. Mr. President, also for consistency, on page 2, line 4 to 9, it refers, the reference to the LGUs is different provinces, and then it goes on to highly urbanized cities. But later on, in line 16 to 18, it refers to local government units in the countryside covering all provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. So maybe there's a need to clarify if it's just this is a province-led versus, it's a province-led, but
Province-led.
obviously the
And
province
cities,
will
diba?
get from their municipalities and barangay and any component city, but it's a province-led. Is that how it works?
They are represented by each provinces, but we still encourage the cities. They may participate, Mr. President.
No, but isn't letter B just encouraging everyone?
Yung mga
Okay, so my reading of, or still on page 2, still on section 3, lines 11 to 24, on PNG's purpose and objective, it appears to be really for the development of elite sports. No, that is my understanding. Kasi provide a framework for a truly integrated, comprehensive national sports program, linking grassroots to elite sports development, and then encourage all local government to promote sports, to ensure as a venue for the NSA in promoting the respective sport, to widen the base for talent identification. Is my understanding correct that the main objective is talent identification? And I'm tying it to the paragraph that starts on line 4 that says it's the country's premier national sports competition? Or is the goal also to promote sports and wellness and health and an active population just engaging in sports and embracing a healthier lifestyle?
Ang primary objective natin dito, Mr. President, is promote sports program. Of course, no, linking grassroots
Okay.
sports promotion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so since grassroots and sports promotion in general is the primary, then His Honor would be open to amendments to strengthen that. Para
Yes.
lang naman hindi lang, kasi ang concern natin is yung funding ng mga LGU, gusto naman natin, hindi lang nila i-focus dun sa pinakamagaling sa kanila. Kasi ang nangyayari, we have a very big divide between the elite players and the grassroots. Parang nagninitpick tayo, nag-aantay lang tayo ng superstar, which we have a healthier citizenry kung mas marami ang program na nai-invest sa mga maraming sports. Tapos eventually, maybe not, definitely not overnight, but eventually, mas malaki yung base na pagpipilian ng magagaling na athletes. So if, and I let the record show His Honor is nodding his head, agrees with that, then we'll propose amendment just to strengthen that grassroots component, no, and the objective.
Yes, Mr. President, we're open for amendments.
Thank you. So I'll move on to Section 5, sporting events. It says here that the sporting events are aligned with sporting events participated by the Philippines in the Southeast Asian Games, Asian Para Games, Asian Games, Asian Para Games, Olympics, Paralympic Games, and other international sports competition. So, do I understand this clearly that the last line, the other sports competition, will allow the PNG to showcase or to have like as a demonstration sport, new sports? And I ask for transparency, one of the sports that I'm very familiar with, that I'm actually a key proponent in pushing is paddle, which is still not in the Olympics, not in the Southeast Asian Games, but we're pushing it in Asia, especially because we recognize that the Philippines might have a advantage because we are moving very swiftly and efficiently in promoting this particular sport. So open tayo dyan, whether
Yes,
it's paddle or some other
Yes,
new sport.
we are open to that, Mr. President, like paddle sports,
Okay.
the one you introduced a while
Yes,
ago.
we
yeah.
introduced His Honor earlier. Thank you for that. Yeah. Mr. President, let me go back to Section 4. Athletes and para-athletes who will form part of the delegation of the participating provinces and cities to the PNG must be Filipinos by birth or whose parents are of Filipino ancestry or have been naturalized as Filipinos by law. I have a couple of questions, but my first question is, are we actually going to go that route? Like katulad nung ginagawa natin dito, nagre-recognize tayo ng mga foreigner. Wag naman sana kasi it's a very tedious and to a certain extent costly process kasi nag-i-import tayo. Pwede bang hindi nakasama yon? Yung talagang natural, yung LGU na mag-i-import, Mr. President, medyo mabigat ang loob ko dyan. Ang gusto ko, kung naturalized by law siya, kasi yung buong pamilya niya na naturalized ng dahil nga they have been residing here for how many years, maybe we can strengthen this with residency. Kasi, sorry to say, Mr. President, but this is only prevalent in basketball. And for all my love of the sport that my brothers love also, and I also grew up in a house that has a half basketball court, there are other sports in this country, and I really don't want us to go in that direction, Mr. President.
We can remove that, Mr. President, para purely Filipino-blooded na lang talaga lahat.
Or we can, if we will include it, I don't want to discriminate about those who are really residents here, their families are residents here, and they were naturalized, the whole family was naturalized, pero wag yung hinahanap natin, tapos ina-naturalize ng LGU. Mahirap po yun, Mr. President. So if we agree on that, I can move to my next point. But my other question here is, line 10, no athlete or para-athlete shall carry, represent, or promote any public or private organization, enterprise, or sponsor in the PNG. So, in a lot of NSAs, it's possible that they have sponsors for their existing athletes. Does it just mean that for the PNG Games, do not wear a uniform with the sponsors? Because they may already have contracts. So you cannot, what do you want them to do? To disregard their contract or just not to wear? Because I'm familiar with that. I have joined triathlon events where, because I was part of the national team, we were asked to literally, if you have a sponsor on your jersey, you cover it with tape. Eh di pagawa ka na lang ng walang sponsor kasi ang pangit naman nakatape.
Maybe, Mr. President, we can waive that or we can remove that, Mr. President.
But
Kasi
there may-
minsan, yung iba, may mga sponsor na nga, di ba?
Yun nga. But there may be a reason, Mr. President, so I'm very open to listening to why mas gusto natin na wala. Nape-pressure ba? Na meron? Nakakaawa ba yung wala? I'm very open to hear what was the reasoning for that. I just don't want to discriminate those who already have sponsors. Because kung bawal.
Sayang rin, Mr. President, kung sinong gustong tumulong sa ating mga atleta, no? So we can remove
Open na
this.
tayo. Open
we
na-
can remove this provision. No?
Okay.
We can be open
And then
on that.
I would suggest baka meron naman ding limitation kasi well although these are already adults no, I can understand sa palaro kasi the sponsors require you to do some promotional efforts no. So I think in the palaro where if they're under 18, pwede sigurong i-limit 'yon, 'di ba? Kasi mga bata anong gagawin nila? Magti-TikTok pa sila. Ito naman 18 and above. So maybe but we have to be guided no Mr. President, if we're going to allow, let's have a line there that they're clearly guided by existing laws, di ba, kasi may mga products na bawal i-endorse. For the record, one of the products I always mention here, yung mga vape, bawal yan na mag-endorse ang athlete, pero may nakikita akong nag-endorse, so either ignorant or blatantly disregarding the law. So PSC, can we ask Mr. President, the resource person, to issue a memo to all the NSAs to be sure that they are aware that there are products, whether it's liquor or cigarettes or vapes that bawal. Kasi may nakikita ko, pwede kong ibulong sa inyo mamaya kung anong sport yung nakikita kong may ini-endorse.
So it is now well noted by the PSC officials, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'm coming to an end. Anyway, there's still a period of amendment where, in the interest of proposing the right language, we may ask a few more clarificatory questions, if it's okay.
Yes, we are open to amendments
Yeah.
at the appropriate time, Mr. President. We can introduce it.
Thank you. Siguro, Mr. President, yung iti-take note ko lang dito is one of the obligations of DepEd is to allow the use of its sports facilities, school buildings, and classrooms as may be necessary. DepEd kasi has a severe shortage of classrooms. So I would suggest that I will make an amendment to propose that the higher education institutions would be the first to provide their facilities, considering that the athletes are also college age, no? Para before natin guluhin yung mga schools ng mga bata, dun muna tayo sa schools ng higher education institutions, Mr. President.
DepEd talaga. According to PSC officials, Mr. President, nagagamit po yung DepEd facility since mas marami no ang itong mga DepEd schools natin than the CHED SUCs. So ang naging priority po nila na gamitin ay itong mga pasilidad po ng ating as billeting po, Mr. President.
Yeah, but Mr. President, you normally would have a host city or host country, a host city or host province, right? So normally that host province or city are assessed on their capacity. So my whole point in making that, mentioning that I will make that amendment is to tell PSC that ito yung ipaprioritize nyo nga. Hindi ko naman ho tinatanong kung ano yung ginagawa nila. Sinasabi ko sa kanila kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin.
We can put that in the bill, Mr. President. Naunahin natin ang CHED.
Yun lang naman
facilities,
naunahin lang. Yun lang naman po
according
yung...
to priority, then the DepEd.
Oo. And sometimes also the LGU itself, di ba? They also have other facilities. Yung ihuli lang ang DepEd kasi nga pag mga bagyo, DepEd pa rin, di ba? Naiipit ho yung mga bata dahil dito sa mga summer events that we do not foresee. And then ito naman we foresee, so let's try to limit the disturbance of the regular classes.
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. President, in the interest of due to the fact that we have so many bills lined up for tonight, I'll make my next topic very short, no? But we have an existing bill on the what bill, the law, the rights, yeah. So we have a law on the Student Athletes Protection Act. And here we ensure that a student athlete has a right to play in the school of their choice, and that their priority, but they cannot be forced if there are national games representing the country. May mga ganung provisions tayo. Existing na yan sa batas natin. So there's a provision here which states that, ito siguro yung tungkol sa concerns ng mga piracy. It says here that no athlete who participated in a local sports competition organized by a local sports council and subsequently represented the provincial or city sport delegation shall be permitted to transfer and represent another provincial or city sports delegation. If I may suggest, we clarify this, because if it's simply because pinapirate sila, tapos papapalitan yung address, I understand. We don't want this kind of piracy. But if they legitimately transfer, ba't nyo naman ipipinalize yung bata na, well, yung bata or young athlete, kasi baka 18, 19, 20, 21 na, paano kung lumipat na siya ng school, tapos base na siya sa Manila or base na siya sa Cebu, na dati base siya sa ganon? Paano ba yun? Hindi na siya pwede maglaro? Parang there's something problematic with a very strong prohibition.
We can clarify this during the period of amendments. Mr.
Sige,
President.
baka we can have the resource person can discuss it with His Honor and our team, because we don't want this piracy thing becoming a problem, but we also want to respect the right of this athlete to live where they want to live, in the kung lumipat ang pamilya niya, kung sabi niyo nga iba matanda na nag-asawa or nag-aaral sa ibang lugar. And then in connection with this also, I think it might be important to say something here about the calendar of the school-based leagues like the UAAP and NCCA, kasi ang NCAA, kasi what we don't want to happen is, we've heard a lot, yung parang, magkunyari kang pilay ka para hindi ka maglaro dyan. Ayaw natin ng ganyan, Mr. President. So maybe we can just have a staff-to-staff meeting about this. How do we address it? And then what are the priorities? Because the priority should be, if you ask me, of course, national team, kung maglalaro sila sa ibang bansa, di naman sila pwedeng ipilitin nung LGU nila. Gawin naman natin kasalanan yun kung pinilit sila ng LGU nila na wag sumali sa isang national competition, di ba? And then what if may competition din sa university-wide or college-wide associations that their school is affiliated with. So let's clarify all that, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. President. Maraming salamat.
Yun lang, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Senator Pia Cayetano, thank you very much.